Ava Peters clutched her train ticket like a lifeline, heart hammering in sync with the rhythm of her hurried footsteps. Today wasn't just another meeting, it was the culmination of years, the day she'd finally meet the man who seemed more myth than reality, Arthur Sterling, reclusive billionaire, father of her fiancé David. Every detail of her appearance, her words, even her breathing, had been rehearsed to perfection. Navy dress? Check. Cashmere scarf? Check. Calm composure? That was still a work in progress. The city's outskirts gave way to a landscape she had only glimpsed in magazines. Manicured lawns, wrought iron gates, and sprawling estates lined the streets, silent and intimidating, as if daring her to step inside this world of wealth. 20 minutes left, she told herself. Plenty of time. And yet, when she reached a quiet park bordering the road, everything stopped. On a weathered bench sat a man shivering in tattered layers. His eyes, a piercing blue, reflected exhaustion, life's hardships, and something she couldn't name, an unspoken dignity. He clutched a thin coat around himself, and the sight struck a chord in Ava's chest. Her first instinct screamed, "Keep moving. Don't be late. Don't ruin everything." But another voice, older, familiar, whispered from memory, "The measure of your character is how you treat someone who can do nothing for you." She knelt beside him, offering her lunch, her only lunch, and then, without hesitation, draped her expensive scarf around his shoulders. His eyes widened, scanning her like he understood every ounce of fear, every ounce of kindness she had just poured into the gesture. "Thank you," he murmured, voice raspy but gentle. "Very kind." Ava's stomach twisted. She was late now, minutes, precious minutes ticking away. But a new calm had replaced the panic. She had passed a test she hadn't even known existed, a test far more important than the approval of a wealthy, intimidating father. When she finally tore herself away, racing along the private road, she felt the estate looming closer with every step. Two massive gates rose like sentinels. Hard in her throat, she pressed the intercom. "Ava Peters, here to see Mr. Sterling." The pause on the other side of the speaker stretched impossibly long, each second a hammer against her resolve. Then the gates buzzed open. The mansion emerged at the end of the winding driveway, colossal and cold, stone wings stretching out like a fortress. A forest of ancient oaks framed the approach, their shadows long and silent. Her heels sank slightly in the manicured grass, every step echoing the weight of expectation. And at the top of the grand steps, David waited, pale, tense, radiating a storm of panic and fury. "Ava, where have you been?" 17 minutes late, he hissed, gripping her arm. His voice, usually a source of comfort, was brittle with fear. I stopped," she whispered, breathless. "There was a man, cold, hungry. I had to help him." David's eyes widened in horror, scanning her, scanning the scarf, scanning her very being. "You gave him your scarf? The cashmere?" "Ava." Before she could answer, the massive doors swung open, a butler appearing like a shadow in the doorway. "Mr. Sterling is waiting," he said. And Ava stepped forward, heart alight with dread and anticipation, completely unaware that the real test was about to begin, not the one David had feared, but the one the world would never see coming. Ava's palms were slick as she walked down the marble hallway, each step a drumbeat in her chest. The mansion's silence was absolute, broken only by the distant echo of their footsteps. Portraits of stern ancestors lined the walls, eyes seeming to follow her, judging her readiness, her worth. She glanced at David, whose grip was trembling on her hand, panic radiating in waves. The dining room doors loomed ahead, colossal and forbidding. Ava swallowed hard. The lessons David had drilled into her, safe topics, polite smiles, neutral words, now felt irrelevant. She had passed a test without even trying. But fear still gripped her. Would the real test recognize that? When the doors opened, she froze. The figure at the head of the table was unmistakable. The man from the park bench. The same thin coat, the same weary dignity, the same piercing blue eyes. Ava's breath caught. Her heart thundered in disbelief. David's jaw went slack, a quiet whimper escaping him. Father, he gasped, horror and confusion etched across his face. Arthur Sterling's gaze rested on Ava. For a moment, silence stretched like a held breath. Then he smiled, a slow, warm, approving smile that seemed to fill the entire cavernous room. "Welcome," he said, voice raspy but kind. "Please have a seat." The room, once a fortress of wealth and intimidation, transformed in that instant. It wasn't about appearances, titles, or money. It was about the courage to act with kindness when no one is watching, the bravery to put humanity before protocol. Ava's nerves steadied as she took her place. The table was vast, opulent, but her focus remained on him. She felt seen, not for her attire, not for her punctuality, not for her family's standing, but for the simple, profound act of generosity she had offered without expectation. David fidgeted beside her, awkward and humiliated. His rehearsed confidence had crumbled. Every question, every reminder he whispered, was irrelevant. Arthur Sterling's attention was on Ava alone, dissecting character through observation, conversation, and subtle interaction. Dinner began with formalities, but soon Ava found herself speaking openly, authentically. About her childhood, her parents' sacrifices, her work mentoring children in the city, the garden she tended with community kids. Each word was met with attentive, discerning interest. Arthur's questions were sharp, insightful, probing, but never cruel. He tested her values, her consistency, her compassion. And with each answer, Ava felt a quiet strength settle in her chest. She wasn't performing, she was being herself. By dessert, the scarf was back in her hands, folded neatly. "I believe this belongs to you," Arthur said, eyes twinkling. The warmth of that simple gesture resonated far beyond material value. David, pale and silent, watched helplessly. For once, his father's approval was not his to claim. Ava had passed the only test that mattered and, in doing so, had revealed truths that would forever change the dynamics of family, love, and respect. The moment the scarf rested in Ava's hands, the room seemed to exhale. She looked up, startled, as Arthur Sterling leaned back, his eyes twinkling with amusement and gravity combined. David, meanwhile, remained frozen, his usual arrogance shattered. For the first time, the son, the one who had spent his life seeking approval, was powerless. Ava realized that the hierarchy she had feared wasn't wealth or influence, it was integrity, the kind that Arthur Sterling had quietly measured for decades. A soft laugh escaped Arthur, deep and resonant. "Do you see, Ava, what many fail to understand? Life isn't about riches, about control, about appearances. It's about character. And it's about courage to do the right thing when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or costly." Ava felt her pulse slow, the chaos in her chest replaced by an unexpected calm. Every choice she had feared would define her now seemed trivial compared to this revelation. David's whisper came, shaking. She gave you the scarf? The lunch." Arthur's gaze shifted sharply to his son, the tone slicing through the silence. "Yes. And she did it without hesitation. She acted with kindness, not calculation. And that, David, is something you have spent your life misunderstanding." The weight of realization hit David like a physical blow. His own insecurities, his obsession with status and approval, were laid bare before the woman he had underestimated, and his father, the very man whose validation he craved most, was showing him another path. Ava's heart ached for him, but the pride in her own actions surged. She had acted from instinct, not fear, and in doing so, had passed the only test that mattered. She realized something profound. The measure of a person's worth is invisible to the world. It is revealed only in private acts of courage and generosity. The rest of the evening moved like a delicate choreography. Arthur Sterling, now fully engaged, directed his questions to Ava, probing deeper into her mind, her ethics, her dreams. David flinched at every response, each answer highlighting his own failings, self-doubt, superficiality, and dependence on parental approval. The mansion's grandeur faded in Ava's perception. It became merely the backdrop to the real drama unfolding, the silent, invisible test of heart and integrity. Each plate, each gesture, each glance was amplified, the room a stage for unseen lessons. Arthur leaned forward, resting elbows on the polished table. "Tell me, Ava, why do you dedicate your life to helping others?" he asked softly. Ava spoke honestly, letting her voice carry the passion of her convictions. She described the kids in her neighborhood, the community garden, the hope she tried to nurture every day. Her words were not rehearsed. They were alive, vibrant, sincere. David could only watch, powerless. The tension between father and son, expectation and reality, performance and truth, filled the cavernous dining room. Arthur's approval, expressed subtly through nods and quiet smiles, was a quiet crescendo. The ultimate revelation loomed. David had believed that meeting the father was about etiquette, dress, punctuality, but Ava had revealed a far higher truth, the currency of kindness. Finally, Arthur stood, gesturing to Ava. "This scarf, this gesture, this courage, these are what I value," he said, voice echoing. "You, Ava, have passed the only test that matters. Your presence here tonight redefines what is truly important." David staggered in realization, shame and awe colliding. His world of power, control, and inherited wealth had no bearing here. His father's admiration belonged to the one who chose humanity over protocol. Tears welled in Ava's eyes as she understood the depth of her actions. She had not just won approval, she had transcended expectation, showing that kindness outweighs ambition and integrity eclipses wealth. The mansion, once intimidating, now felt warm. Arthur's eyes softened, and his smile became a sun breaking through clouds. "Ava, you are welcome here, not because of money, not because of pedigree, but because you see the world as it should be seen, with heart." David's collapse into humility was complete. He had been schooled, gently yet profoundly, by the very father whose approval had governed his life. The wedding, 3 months later, was understated yet radiant. In her parents' backyard, Ava stood in sunlight, exchanging vows with David, who now understood her worth and the true meaning of respect, integrity, and love. Arthur Sterling was present, no longer a mysterious, feared figure, but a man who valued character above all else. The scarf, a symbol of sacrifice and kindness, draped elegantly over his shoulders, a quiet nod to the choices that had defined the evening when Ava had passed the true test. Ava's smile was serene, grounded in understanding that the measure of life is not wealth, appearances, or power, but compassion, courage, and integrity. David, beside her, had learned humility, and in that growth, their love deepened beyond material or superficial bounds. The true lesson resonated. Moments of selfless courage, small, quiet, unseen, are what shape destiny, redefine families, and reveal the hearts of men and women. And in that sunlit garden, surrounded by love, respect, and understanding, Ava knew she had passed the ultimate test. She had chosen humanity over expectation, and in doing so, changed the lives of everyone around her.